In learning, you will teach, and in teaching, you will learn. Phil Collins. Recruitamentary. Empowering your employment. And now, we continue our conversation on with Kaylee. You're killing all my fun here.
I know. I know complaining is easy too. I hear it a lot. People will show up at an event and complain about how they were laid off, how their manager didn't treat them well, how they're whatever it is. It doesn't work for them. It leaves a negative taste, and it really doesn't add any value to the person that they're trying to engage with.
I agree. And unfortunately, I have those very same conversations. I had a guy who was, and again, with Recruitamentary, that's something that I focus in on. I have no problems addressing issues with people, talking to them, regardless of what it is. I don't want to hear any complaining. And I make that a very firm statement for the process because there is enough of that negativity going on. I want to make that change, and I want to start with the person who I'm talking with. And I want them to identify that for a bigger conversation, a bigger change in their life. So anybody who's listening, again, I welcome any conversation that is going to lead to a clearer, bigger outcome rather than just, I don't want to be stuck in the rut with anybody. I will support anybody and work with them and give them the necessary skills and tools and things of that nature. But the reason why I say this is there was a guy, this was on LinkedIn. He wasn't, you can tell he just was sort of, woe is me. He was like a big Eeyore. And, I lost my house. I was going through a divorce. And listen, not for nothing, but nobody wants to hear those things publicly constantly. You deal with them. I mean, we all have those things happen, but it happened. Move on, build from that, learn from that. And it's just, if you keep in that rut and you keep in those conversations and that rhetoric, people are going to associate your pain with your personality. And they're two separate entities. We have reactions to things based on our emotional attachment to them. Nobody wants to hear the word no. It's just, we want to hear yes, we want to hear options, but unfortunately not everybody is tuned into our frequency or our pain points or our struggles. They have their own, worries and mouths to feed and things of that nature. The first thing that you really need to change, I would say, and especially with this individual, is just, change your attitude, be receptive to new opportunities and options, and, start from there. Start just being around a different group of people. That was one thing that I realized when I was networking. Challenge yourself to talk to at least 10 different people. And if there is somebody who you don't think you could have any conversation with whatsoever, nothing in common with, talk to that person specifically. And if it doesn't work out, then you learn something and you could pick that up from the next time.
Totally. You've touched on a couple of things there, really. One is the solution-focused mindset, which is what I subscribe to in my life coaching practice that I do. So I basically, like I said, I combine life coaching processes with the career search or the job search. And it's all about looking forward. So you can sit there and you can dwell on your past all day long. If you need to work through something in your past, sure, go get the help that you need. But if you want to move forward, you have to take strides in that direction. If you want to get a job tomorrow, what step or what baby step are you taking today? If you want to get a very specific job or you're looking for a specific lifestyle, work-life balance, then what steps do you actually need to take today to get there? That's the goal-setting piece of this. And networking is no different. If you want to make connections in your industry in order to leverage a community of people that are like-minded, that potentially have projects that you would be a good fit for, then you need to set some goals. You need to decide how many people you want to talk to tomorrow in order to leverage yourself into that community 2-3 years down the line.
I agree. And I follow that up with two trains of thought that I usually share with people. And one, it's pretty obvious. It's the definition of an insanity. It's somebody doing the same thing again and again and again, the same exact manner, and they're expecting a completely different outcome. And it's just not going to happen. If you keep getting the same result, change the medium, change the way, change the process and the steps that you're taking, because obviously those steps are leading you to the same result that you're not happy with. I mean, again, you wouldn't be upset if it's successful. Hey, let me keep doing this and keep winning the lotto or keep landing these jobs or keep being successful. People don't complain when it works like that. They only do it when it doesn't. That's number one. The second one that I like to say to people is headlights only work in one direction. There's a reason why they don't work looking back. It's because you're supposed to be focused looking forward for where you are. Now, if you take your eyes off the road and you look back, you're going to end up crashing the car because you're too focused on what's behind you. Meanwhile, the lights are focused on what's in front of you, what's ahead. And that is super important if you're too focused on behind. But that is the reality of how things work. Great points. When we usually wrap up our episodes, what I like to say is some horror stories and placement stories. So if you could share with us maybe one candidate horror story that you had, somebody that you were working with and just was really just up there as one of the top 5, things that you would make you want to quit doing what you do, and finishing up with maybe something really, really awesome, really inspirational, or something that is memorable for a candidate that you've worked with as well.
Definitely. So in terms of horror story, immediately a certain individual came to my mind. So it was in my days when I used to be a recruiter. This person looked perfect on paper. This person interviewed well, knew the behavioral interview process. So perhaps he had a coach, but essentially he was the ideal candidate. So of course we extended him an offer, but this goes back to the importance of honesty. So what ended up happening is, despite his abilities to showcase his skills, both on paper and in the interview, he could not show up to work. I'm not sure why. He could show up to the interview, but he did not show up for his first day of training. He had an excuse for his second day of training. His excuse on the third day was that the gate was locked and he didn't know how to get in and didn't bother to call anybody. And I really didn't know how to tell the hiring manager that we'd failed in this scenario, because he looked perfect. And so I think that's my biggest horror story, is that lying doesn't work out for you, because at the end of the day, this person didn't have a job within 3 days because they didn't show up for those first 3 days. Right. So we called him and told him never to come back. So, I mean, you can fluff your way to an offer letter, sure. After that, if you're still not representing yourself in a way that's effective, you're not showing up, you're not doing what you're saying you're going to do, et cetera, and you can't do all the things that are on your resume, then that's not going to end well either, right? So it's one thing to look good on paper. It's another thing to practice what you preach and be the person that you want to be. Wow.
Did they give him the right address, or was he at the right place? I mean, that's bizarre.
It was super bizarre. We actually ended up calling one of his previous employers, who refused to comment on his performance. And, even though we had done a background check, our background check process was kind of sketchy at the time, let's say. I won't tell you who I was working for. But essentially what ended up happening is he disclosed to us that he was completely banned from returning to the premises of his previous employer.
Okay, that's crazy.
So that was enough for us to say, we're done here.
Yeah.
And because it hadn't even been a week of his employment at that point. So at that point, it's within that 30-day trial period, we decided to cut our losses. Right. And so that was an interesting lesson, that really this guy still doesn't have a job at the end of the day.
I mean, it's just strange that you can't find the entrance. I mean, dude, look at the GPS. You are here, and then match the numbers with the wall number plaque, and that's it. I
didn't understand myself.
I don't. You know what?
I was pretty concerned for his well-being, to be honest.
I can understand why that would make your top 5 list and immediately stand out in your mind, because there's no way you'd forget that. It's that's the horror story. What's something awesome that's happened in your line of experience?
Something that's awesome. I've actually been fairly fortunate, despite my HR career during an economic downturn here in Calgary. I've worked with some really amazing people and some really amazing leaders. I think, though, one of my more recent experiences as well, I've been helping new immigrants to Canada in their job search. And one of my very first clients, when I launched my business in November of last year, he got himself a job. We rebranded him from an engineering field to a sales field. And so it's all about transferable skills, all about that full rebrand like we were talking about earlier. And he got himself a job in Canada in sales within 3 months of working together. And that's the kind of thing that warms my heart, is knowing that I've worked with somebody and coached somebody to the point that they can feed themselves for life, just like the quote. I just want to do more of that day in, day out. That's why I do what I do.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And thanks for taking the time to be on the episode with us, Kaylee. I really do appreciate it.
It's been a fabulous experience. Thanks so much.
Thank you. You can find Kaylee on LinkedIn. You can also learn more about her career coaching resources and options through her website, khcareercoaching.com. That is KH as in the letters, careercoaching.com. You can also email her directly at coach@KayleeHoude.com. Thanks again, Kaylee.
Thank you so much.
Have your own recruiter or candidate story that you'd like to share with us? If you're listening on YouTube, comment below. Otherwise, feel free to email your experience to ask@recruitamentary.com. You can find our full conversation of this episode on YouTube at youtube.com/recruitamentary. Thanks for checking out this episode, and feel free to like, subscribe, and share the content. A Mike Tech Studios production.